Let's create our first C# program, and instead of using Visual Studio, I'm going to use very simple tools so you can see what's happening behind the scenes. I'm going to use a command line prompt in Notepad and create a file called hello.cs. .cs is the file extension that you want to use if you're creating a file with C# source code inside of it. And the first line I'm going to put in here is a using system. This is telling the compiler that I want easy access to some functionality that is inside of the system namespace. Everything in the framework class library is partitioned into a namespace. For instance, if you're writing web applications with ASP.NET, chances are you'll be using system.web because that contains a lot of the functionality that's used by ASP.NET. We don't need that, but we do want easy access to some stuff that is inside of the root system namespace. The next thing I'll do is create a class, because one of the things you should know about .NET is that anytime that you're going to create code that wants to execute, that code has to be attached to a type, has to be defined inside of a type. And one way to define a type is to create a class. In this case, we have a class called program. Everything between those curly braces is going to be a member of that class. Now I'm going to create a method. And we'll talk a little bit about what these other keywords are in a later module, public, static, void. That's just a way of describing some of the characteristics of this method. The most important thing right now to know is that this is a method called main. It takes no parameters. And the body of this method, that is the code that I can put in it, is also going to be between curly braces. Inside of here, I'm going to use that console class again. It has a method on it called writeLine, and I can tell it to write out to the console hello world, and I'll save that. At this point, I don't have anything that can execute. I just have a text file. So I'm going to go to the C# compiler and transform this into something that can execute. One way to run the C# compiler is to go to the framework installation directory, which for version 4 will be under your Windows directory, Microsoft.NET Framework, and then you can have multiple versions of .NET installed. In this case, we're going to the version 4 directory. Inside of there will be an executable called csc.exe. That is the C# compiler. And in this case, it tells us we have an error. We didn't specify any inputs. So let's try it again and actually tell it to compile hello.cs. We didn't get an error message this time. If we look at the directory, you'll see we have hello.exe. So this is something that we can actually execute, and it writes out hello world.